Well, welcome to this webinar on how are we doing measuring performance. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher, presenting this for you on behalf of Destination Staffordshire and Winning Moves as part of the ERDF funded programme for tourism and hospitality businesses in Staffordshire. Now, as usual, there's a little time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers, and you can ask them as we go along via the chat part of the system. But I'll save answering them to the end. You may like to take a note of my Winning Moves email address, malcolmg@winningmoves.com, if you want to ask something specific. Please note, this webinar is being recorded and will be available online in the future in the new Destination Staffordshire Tourism Academy. Okay, that said, let's get on with how are we doing measuring performance. How's your Easter been then? Has it been fantastic? I'm talking to you from up in Northumberland at the moment, where it's been disastrous with the weather. And as a consequence, many people's targets, particularly in tourism and hospitality, have been blown out of the water. They've come nowhere near hitting them. And they're having to quickly think about, we really need a good Easter to get ourselves started. What are they going to do about it? Now, the problem with many of those businesses I've just been talking about is that they don't really have a very good handle on their performance. They just guess in many cases. If you've got your cup of coffee ready, sit back with us for 20 or 30 minutes as I take you through some of the challenges that those businesses and yourself need to be considering to plug into why you should be knowing what you're doing or measuring performance. So some of the challenges then I encounter, especially across Staffordshire: competition. Increasingly challenging competition from budget hotels, more restaurants, more cafes. Every time I sort of leave a place and come back again a few months later, there seems to be some new competition open. So it's constant competitiveness. And those competitors, by the way, are often bringing in lower prices, which is a bigger challenge. Now, another challenge to consider, of course, the increase in costs, particularly in food and utilities. So managing competition and costs, and then comes the other couple of big challenges. Customers themselves. Customers today are less loyal. They're more fickle. They're more likely to go to another a competitor, and they also are very avid TripAdvisor watchers. And another challenge that hits most businesses and will get increasingly worse with Brexit are people. Finding and keeping good people is a major challenge. In point of fact, there was a research out the other day by Sunday Times that showed that tourism and hospitality were most of the vacancies, the largest amount of vacancies across the UK. And I know many hotels are struggling to find, restaurants are struggling to find chefs. Now, all those challenges are biting away. They're biting away, and what it means is your margins are being squeezed, and other challenges rear their heads. So it's important then to think, what are we going to do about it? Well, my suggestion is, the answer is know, inquire, and act. To do this, you've got to know the numbers. And unfortunately, far too many businesses that we meet in Staffordshire don't really know the numbers. They've not been shining a light inside their business. They don't know the numbers. They get the numbers from their accountant at the end of the year and they file it away. What we need to do is to inquire, dive into those numbers to be able to search out where the problems and where the opportunities lie. And then the final part of my 3, act, do something about them. Hopefully what we're going to show you in this webinar is what exactly you can be doing about them in a very innovative way. So what is it that you need to know? Well, most businesses say, oh, we're different. And tourism and hospitality, yes, is different in some ways, but in the end, it's really a business. And what you need to do is, where are we doing well? Where are we losing out? And often, by the way, that's by the fact that staff don't upsell or cross-sell or don't maximize the opportunity from a customer. Where's our opportunity? Opportunity might be including improving productivity, or it may be in buying better. And what action can we take? These are the 4 things that are behind what I'm talking about across this webinar. So the idea then is, if we've got this business, if you've got your business that's successful or wanted to be greater success, what we've got to do is to be aware of the challenges that it's got. And the way to do it is to shine a light into all of your business. Don't just look at the obvious, counting the tickets or the receipts that's in the till. Shine a light inside the business. And the way to do that very effectively is the Destination Staffordshire program called Benchmark Index, provided by Winning Moves and part of the ERDF program here in Destination Staffordshire. I'm going to take you through some of the thinking behind that particular program and how it works. First of all, you get in advance a PDF. So the idea is, you say to your coach, yes, I'd like to participate in this exciting benchmark index. And by the way, it's completely free to Staffordshire tourism and hospitality businesses, which is a superb saving. In advance, you get a PDF from us that says, these are the figures that you need to get ready for when your coach arrives. So when myself or one of my colleagues arrives, you'll already had that advanced information, advanced detail, and we'll be ready then to log in live into the benchmark index system and start doing what's called the benchmark index, which is reviewing you compared to actually hundreds, if not a good few thousand, other tourism and hospitality businesses. And when we finish the actual comparison, and I'll take you through the various screenshots in a few minutes' time, what we do is we simply push the button and an instant report is generated, a very valuable and live report that shows how you're performing against others. And then what we do is we sit down with you, go through those and explain the ratios and what it means then, and start to put together an action plan to help you improve performance. And then, of course, what we'll do is we'll come back later on in the Destination Staffordshire program, sit down with you and review the action you've taken and whether it's worked or not and how we can make it work even better. So that's behind the program. Let's have a little dip into the program. But just before I do that, I'd just like to point out, and I think this is extremely important and raised its head many times by businesses, everything that we do on the benchmark index is completely confidential. It's information that's only shared between you and your coach. So Destination Staffordshire, Winning Moves, nobody else can actually see that confidential information that's input. And I think that's really important that you know, and it will give you obviously the confidence to participate and share the figures to get the utmost from the program. So you get this PDF sent in advance, which gives you the details of the various parts of the questionnaire that we'll take you through and the exercise we'll take you through, and it gives you some sort of explanation. So usually I'll try and send it out to you 2 weeks to 4 weeks in advance of my visit to do the benchmark index, so you've got plenty of time to gather the information. And the information, most of it can come straight from your last two sets of books from your accountant. So let's have a little look at what's behind the system and what's part of it. The program has 4 parts which are based upon what's called the balanced scorecard. And then we've added a special 5th part, tourism specific, which are just ratios and measurements specifically for tourism and hospitality businesses. So if you look at on the screen, the green boxed area shows you 4 processes that we'll be looking at, or 4 perspectives of your business. We're going to be shining a light into finance. We'll be shining a light into customers. We'll be shining a light into what's called internal process, and the other one on learning and growth. Now, don't get too concerned about those titlings. You'll see as we go through them that each of those titlings or perspectives has a number of management indicators within them, and you'll understand how they all start to work together to produce a very dynamic business. Now, to that, we've added a set of questions and benchmark index on tourism specific, and I'll explain that to you as we go through the program. So the first work that we do after we've logged in and set up you into the system is to look at very financial key management indicators. There's a number that you can see on the left of the screen, and you've been asked to provide this information in advance. So that's why we give you 2 to 3 weeks so that you can make certain you found the information within your sets of books or accounting system. Some of the financial aspects, which, by the way, these are generic to most businesses. Don't think that you're different because you're in tourism and hospitality. You still have your mandatory and statutory obligations to paying tax and declaring and managing the business. So there are certain obviously elements that you need that are generic, such as total turnover, profit before tax, number of FTE. That stands for full-time equivalent staff. So usually if you've got 2 part-time staff, that equates to 1 full-time equivalent staff. And elements such as total assets. We'll look at things like cost of bought-in materials and services. So we take our time to fill that information in live onto the system as myself or my colleague are sitting in front of you. Moving on from finance, we come to the ratios that we need to be looking at, or the management indicators around the customer. Now, this is a challenge I found with a lot of the businesses that I've been to visit in Staffordshire to do this work. Many of them don't know how many customers they've had. So they put, for example, it's a gastropub or something like that. Yes, you might know if you've got a visitor attraction, how many come through the turnstiles, but far too many we may visit don't know how many customers they've had. That creates a big problem for you to manage your business later on. So if you haven't yet got a system in place of knowing how many customers have come to the bar or the restaurant, then start to put something in place. You probably have that information already if you've got point of sale till. If you haven't, start to make certain that you're recording it on chits. It will make the opportunity much better for you when we start to look later on, for example, how much spend per customer. Can we increase the amount of spend per customer? Can we set targets? How can we do that, generate that extra spend, upselling, cross-selling? So if you've got the number of customers, that really does make it very, very helpful for you to move forward and to maximize the opportunity of the benchmark index. We'll be looking at elements such as recorded customer complaints, and we all get a few of those, don't we, somewhere along. Cost of refunds. And importantly, another new challenge that people need to consider in tourism and hospitality, how many new customers you got during the year. And if you're not quite certain how to do that, then when myself or when my colleague coaches visit you, let's have a chat about that, and we'll give you some ideas on how you record the number of new customers you've got. That way we can start to see what's working and what's not working for you. And finally there, you see in number 13 down in the bottom left on the screen, your TripAdvisor rating. This really becomes very, very important. Don't worry too much about TripAdvisor rating. If you feel you're dipping, the average is 4.2 to 4.5 score. But what you do need to be doing is making certain that you are monitoring that rating, and importantly, as we'll discuss at a later stage as well, how you read between the lines. Because if you can read between the lines of what customers are saying about you, then not only are you getting some feedback on what you need to do to improve, but in many, many cases, as I've proven and shown people, you can actually spot opportunity. And that's when we start to know how we can improve our customer spend. So moving on to the third process, which is called the internal process. I say, don't worry about the titling of these they're called balanced scorecard perspectives. It's what's within each of these four that are important to you. And here we're looking at things like marketing expenditure. Now, there are certain ratios. For example, a good restaurant or a cafe will spend about 3% of turnover on marketing. A very active visitor attraction will spend up to about 10%, if not more, on marketing. So you need to get a handle, and that's how we're going to help you on the benchmark index, whether you're overspending or underspending, so that you can then have a discussion about with us what would be more effective for you within your marketing. We're looking at elements in here such as the capital investments, and perhaps there's a way that we can point you in the direction of any grants that may be available within the county. And one area that I'm quite keen on, which is in number 17, as you can see on the left-hand screen there, is the turnover from new products or services, or new markets or new segments. Now, if you followed me on some of the other webinars where I've talked about getting fully booked, I talk about market segmentation and niches such as ancestral tourism, food cookery, and other sort of areas such as ceramics, being able to get yourself into certain niches and hold those niches. Now, then what we want to do is to create new products and services from those niches. And if that start to do then we can start to identify where we can put some minor modifications or little ways of helping you maximize the opportunity. I really do think it's beholden of most businesses, not just to look at themselves as a typical casual dining and hope that people are going to walk through the door or perhaps book in advance, but to have lots of events, segments, niches, all coming together to build up across the year. And in many cases, by the way, we'll show you how you can make more money out of using a niche or a segmentation approach. Now, the other one there, number 18, has reared its head constantly across the county of Staffordshire whilst we've been doing this exercise, and that's the annual energy costs. I was at one hotel, who don't mind me telling the story, but I'll not mention the name. I was one hotel there who were absolutely amazed at the energy costs. Because they'd just been taking the figures and getting onto them, their energy costs equaled the profit for the year. Wow. And then when we delved into it further, and that's one of the real big benefits of this particular exercise, we delved into it further there. We found that the lights in one part of the building, which is a larger ballroom area, and the air conditioning were being left on overnight, every night, because the night manager hadn't got up his backside and gone upstairs to switch them off. So the costs were enormous in that case. And a couple of other instances where we've managed to identify where savings could actually start to come there. By the way, other savings that we found and helped with are people who've just been buying out of maybe loyalty or just because that's the way they do it. For example, one gastropub that we went to, they've been buying from the local butchers, spending 20-odd thousand pounds a year and not even asking for any favorable pricing or discount there, just spending because that's the way we've done it. So we gave them some lines as to what to do, and they managed to achieve, without just on the first request, a 20% saving on that particular butchery bill, which is £4,000 odd to the bottom line immediately. So you really do start to shine the light into the business, as I say, and we start to help you with our expertise on questioning. So not just a thing of putting numbers in, it's actually making these numbers work for you and having a dialogue and discussion as we're going along. The fourth process that we look at there, or the fourth perspective, is learning and growth. And this is where we really need to focus upon the importance of people within tourism and hospitality. I'm quite passionate about, and I present a number of the workshops for Winning Moves and Destination Staffordshire on people, building a dream team, good leadership, because really people make a business. There's no doubt about it. You can have the most fanciest of building, but you haven't got the right people there greeting. We're in hospitality, greeting people, making them feel welcome and everything, then your business is on a hiding to nothing. So we'll look at how many people you employ there, the FTE, full-time equivalent employees. That's 2 part-time make equal 1 full-time there. We'll look at how much money you're spending on training, and really you should be maximizing the opportunity of the Destination Staffordshire support program, because all the training of workshops, masterclasses, online webinars like this, and one-to-one is completely free for you within the ERDF specification. So if you're not taking advantage of all the offering, then we need to be helping you and guiding you there, particularly on how to develop your own leadership, your people's leadership, and develop your team and team leaders, because that really does make the success of a business much more than any other marketing activity. And my discipline is marketing, so I should be shouting about marketing, but I believe people come first. And making certain that they're being well looked after, that you're encouraging them to go for work-related qualifications, and importantly as well, that you are aware that you've got to keep investing to bring on new people to make sure that your business is sustainable. And a good way of doing that is by participation in a good apprenticeship program. So those are the 4 core, and I say generic, because that means they stretch across same types of businesses, the core 4 aspects of the balanced scorecard. Now for the real beauty of the benchmark index for Destination Staffordshire, because what Winning Moves have done is they've added a 5th perspective, and this 5th perspective is called tourism specific. So let's have a look at some of the areas we'll be delving into on tourism perspective. We'll be looking at aspects such as your food standards, your FSA rating. And all too often people think that it's just something to be got through. No, it's not. It really is a great way of showing your quality by having a 5-star FSA rating. And again, I see people who are quite content just to sit with 2 or 3 ratings. Well, I've got to say to you, I'd be unlikely to want to go to eat there. Maybe you have the same thoughts there. So maintaining a high standard. And more importantly from that, is not just having the sticker to go on the window, it's cascading the learning, cascading the values of cleanliness, environmentalism, all through your business. It really does set you apart. Again, we need to be working very much on, as I say, the 27 there, knowing how many visitors or customers that you've had across the year, and actually how many you can take at any one time, so that we can see where there's a gap. And often that gap is where the opportunity really, really lies on maximizing the extra beds, the extra spaces within the extra tables and so on there. We'll look very carefully at separating turnover, wet food and wet sales, entry fees, where your different revenue streams that you've got. And perhaps you might be looking at some new revenue streams that we can talk to you within here and use our experience and skill set to guide you, or perhaps to look at ways that we can say, well, we can up that by a little bit more upselling or cross-selling. So again, what we do is we go in quite deep into understanding these particular ratios and talking about your business. It's not just something to fill in for somebody else because nobody else can see it. It's all about this. It's all about you and the growth of your business. So a little few more ratios that we look at on tourism specific. We'll dip into separating, as say, wet sales and food sales. We'll look at things like accidents and doing a comparison. Some of the ratios, by the way, may look like they cross over from each other, but that's quite deliberate because it then starts to show us up a lot more information that we can interpret very effectively for you. So those are the 5 areas that we'll be looking at within the program. Now, to give you an idea, that would probably take about 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending upon the level of conversation that we have between us as we go through each ratio. Mostly people say to me, "You made me think about my business." And that's really nice, because if we can help you think about your business, then that's a great step towards improvement of the business. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer because people get quite involved and enjoying the discussion about where they can find the information, how they can improve upon getting the information, and perhaps some areas on where they think they may not be doing so well on performance or productivity and so on. From the completion of the input, we then go into a little bit of magic that's behind the benchmark index, because this program that Winning Moves developed has been going now, I think this is its 20th year in the marketplace. And as it's grown over the years, actually more and more businesses, sample size, there's over 200,000 businesses, information is within the benchmark index. If you just look up to the top there, the sample size on this particular area that we're looking at is 119,000, and 29,000 of those businesses have been benchmarked. That means they've gone through the process that I've just been taking you through. And Winning Moves are constantly buying in or bring in additional information to improve the sample size, so that you don't have to worry that you're going to be, if you're a small hotel, that you're going to be compared with some massive London hotel or something. You're not. You're going to be compared with as much like for like as possible. And that is really quite an exciting part of it all. So some of the magic we do here, we select what's called NACE codes, which are further sort of breakdown of the different sectors and information. That obviously isn't something you need to know so much about. It's just what you do need to know is that the database behind it all there is actually ginormous, or big, very big, very live, and extremely effective in helping you see how you're doing compared to other companies. So once we've done that, we push the button, and the system immediately within a minute or so, produces a very comprehensive PDF report. You can see on the screen there the table of contents behind the report there, the benchmark information about the report. It doesn't just give you figures, it actually gives you explanation. And then myself and my colleagues as coaches will go through it in depth with you, so A, you thoroughly understand it, and B, we work on what we can do about improvement. So some of the ratios that we'll take you through and let you see how it works. You can see a screenshot on the screen there for the element on the customer perspective. What it does, it shows you where you're strong, who the weakest are, where you are. In this particular case, that the business we've been benchmarking is extremely strong on managing customer complaints. It's a bit weak, though, as you can see on the third one down, number 12, customer growth. It's a bit weak compared to its competitors or other businesses there, it's actually amongst the weakness on customer growth. Now, the thing is about that, it may not be, and this is where shining the light and everything becomes invaluable to you, it may not be weak. It may be just that that particular business hasn't got the information upon number of customers, number of new customers, and so on. It's disregarded that information, which is a real big problem when you come to managing your business, identifying performance, because one of the strongest ratios that you can have is to divide the number of customers into the amount of revenue taken and start to see how much spent per customer and how we can improve upon that. Because it's easier to get more money out of an existing customer than to find a new one. And we look at things like your TripAdvisor ratio. This particular business is not doing too badly. It's between the 4.2 and 4.9, which is a typical average TripAdvisor rating. But why shouldn't we be helping them move towards the 5-star? That's really the goal. And again, we can start to look through and see how we can encourage more TripAdvisors, help you understand the algorithm behind TripAdvisor, and how you can improve those ratings, which in turn attracts more customers. When we delve down right into the elements of spend and wet sales and dry sales, for example, we've got a number of particular ratios there. My favorite, because I invented it, or I developed it over the many years, is number 29, which is LUTRA, Lost and Unchallenged Table Revenue. I actually have that as LUR, L-U-R-R for hotels, which you would see if you were a hotel doing this action, which is Lost and Unchallenged Room Revenue. And what basically I'm saying is that all too often we focus upon occupancy. Should we say if you're a 100-bedroom hotel and your break-even occupancy is 70% and you're happy when you've got to 70%? No, you're losing money because the money lies in the other 30. And so what we tend to do is, instead of patting ourselves on the back there too much because got the break even, let's look at what we could achieve if we tackled the lost and unchallenged table revenue. In other words, the empty tables, focusing upon the empty tables rather than just the full tables, focusing upon the empty beds or the empty cottages rather than just the full beds or the full cottages. The report that you get, and I do acknowledge, by the way, that one of the big benefits of this program is its total comprehensiveness, and it really is an exciting development for you, but it can be a bit bewildering at the first of all. So we do provide you within the PDF plenty of information so you can understand how the ratios are compiled and some of the additional information to help you understand them, apart from, of course, what myself and my colleagues will help you do at the event and at the day, and the follow-up support as well. So just remember that this is totally confidential. There's only your coach, that's myself or my colleagues, and yourself see the information that's going into the system. Winning Moves doesn't, ERDF doesn't, Destination Staffordshire doesn't, nobody else sees that information. It's all anonymous information as far as they're concerned, but not anonymous between you and myself or my fellow coaches there. We instantly send that PDF report to you. You don't have to wait till somebody else compiled it. It's piled specifically for you. Then we sit down and say, right, let's look at the different ratios. Just as I told you about that hotel beforehand and utility costs, how can we improve them? How can we reduce that spend there? What's going on? What's going behind the system? Shining the light into all of your business. And that's where we'd like to believe that our specific coach expertise brings a certain advantage to you. And then what we do afterwards, we discuss an action plan. Well, let's set a date, and we'll revisit you and review what's happened, what you've done about it, and what you can do further. And if later down the line, within the year, within the lifetime of the Destination Staffordshire support program. If we need to go and do the benchmark again, let's do so we can see how we've improved or where we may not have improved, and then move forward again. So it really is a very important guide to your future and your business growth. So what do you get out of the how to improve yourself? How are we doing program? Well, there's no doubt about it. And I've proven this time and time and time again over the year. You can be a better business. You can be a business that's in touch with your costs. You know what you're doing. You're a better business. You can articulate how your business is performing. You can be a more resilient business. And by that, I mean, we don't know what's being thrown at us. We don't know what's coming ahead with Brexit. We don't know what's coming out with people. At the moment, we're seeing people spending less because they're worried themselves about their mortgage rises and so on. So standing out and being resilient so that your business survives, thrives as hopefully, but survives first of all, is one big thing that can come out of the taking the benchmark index. You will be able to see where we can enhance your team performance. And as you know, when I said to you that I'm a great total believer that every successful tourism and hospitality business starts with a great team. You can use the program to be able to substantiate investment for growth. And again, we'll guide you into what grants may be around, for example, or to look at saying, yes, well, you know, we could add another few bedrooms on here or whatever it may be, or increase the size of the restaurant and so on there, and show how that growth could be substantiated or that investment could be substantiated. There's no doubt about it that taking the program and knowing how you're doing helps reduce risk. And risk today is one of our main things we need to look at. It's fine us saying, yes, all you need to do is a bit more marketing or whatever it may be. But beneath it all, we need to be aware of risk. And risk comes in many, many, many shapes there. And by the way of looking at the management indicators and peering into the business as we're doing, we'll unearth areas where the risk may occur and help you remove or manage that risk. You can't remove it usually, but you can mitigate or manage the risk there. And importantly, another big reason, and maybe it's number one in your case, it depends on how you're looking at these results there, but in many cases it has been number one for people I've worked with on the program there. Managing your costs will help you identify where you're spending too much compared to others, and that's the beauty of benchmarking. You will achieve balance, gain great insights, will help you see opportunity, and above all, we'll put the plan together to help you move forward. Thank you for listening to How Are We Doing? You might like to take a note of my email address, malcolmg@winningmoves.com, and please send me an email if there's anything that you're unsure about from this webinar, or you'd like a little bit further conversation. Now, do get in touch with Winning Moves or Destination Staffordshire or your coach to book yourself onto having this free and substantial benchmark index. How are we doing? Thanks for watching.